Saint Jerome, the great Christian Orthodox priest of the West, he's known to be a very wise theologian. He also translated the Bible from Greek to Latin. According to a theologian, Professor Lambrusconsu, one of the greatest saints and fathers of the Western Church is Saint Jerome. Of course, we are all talking about the time when the Church in the East and West was united, and Western Christianity was Orthodox. The fathers of the Western Church of the early Christian years were equal in sanctity and theological training to the fathers of the East, who contributed the most to the development of the Church self-awareness and the clarification of doctrines and the evangelization of people who were in error and gross idolatry. He was born 342 AD. Now, St. Jerome was one of these fathers. He was born 342 in the city of Stridona in Dalmatia and was of Illyrian origin. His parents, wealthy and conscientious Christians, gave him an education, inspired him with piety. At the age of only 7, he was sent to Rome to study philology and rhetoric near the famous teacher and philosopher Rufinus, with whom he became friends. He stayed in Rome for 15 years, and about the end of this period, he renounced the friendship of Rufinus and with the malice of Origen, which his teacher had embraced and taught. Then Jerome, at the age of 19, was baptized a Christian by the Bishop of Rome, Liverio. In 367, he went to Treveri to continue his studies, and later in 372 to the city of Aquileia in Trieste for the same reason. After completing his studies, he turned to the ascetic life, a hermit monk in other words, but the pleasures and temptations of life did not allow him to initiate and follow the solitary life. It's reported that for a short time he lived in a secluded life, where he mourned for his short defection throughout life. In 373, he decided to visit the Holy Land, where the Lord lived. But when he arrived in Antioch, he fell seriously ill and almost died. There he realized his sinfulness and bitterly repented of his sinful life. After fervent prayer to God, he was miraculously cured. This fact was the reason for dedicating the rest of his life to the life of Christ and the service of the Church. He did not take the road to the holy pilgrimages, but the road of the Syrian desert, where they exercise in prayer, by exercise in prayer, he was purified and sanctified, meaning spiritual exercises, of course. In 378, he returned to Antioch, where Bishop Paulinus ordained him without the will of his elder in 379, but Jerome never approached the holy altar. He ordained him as a priest, in other words, but Jerome never approached the holy altar, apparently because he considered himself a sinner and unworthy of the great office of the priesthood. A year later, in 380 AD, he went to Constantinople, today Istanbul, where he met Saint Gregory the theologian, as well as Saint Gregory of Nyssa and Saint Amphilochius of Iconium. He stayed close to these great fathers for about 2 years, where he was taught the theology of the Christian Orthodox fathers and was introduced to the genuine spirituality of the Church. And during his stay in Constantinople, he learned well the Greek language as well as the Hebrew language in order to engage in the interpretation of the scriptures and the writing of theological treatises. In 382, he went to Rome, where he became secretary to Pope Damasus until 384 AD. He believed that he would be the next pope after the death of Damasus, but the devils of the Roman clergy meant that he was not elected to the episcopal throne of Rome. He connected spirituality with 3 ladies of the Roman aristocracy, to whom he taught Christian Orthodox spirituality and ascetic life, Paulina, Evstochia, and Marcella, where they became the core, where multitudes of other women gathered, to whom Jerome taught the Christian faith and the spiritual life. However, embittered by the intrigues of some Christians in the Roman metropolis, the city of Rome, he decided to return to the East because the spirituality of the Christian East wanted him, and his 3 female students followed suit. So in 385 he arrived in Bethlehem, the holy city where the Savior of the world, Christ, was born, with money from Paul, a student, he built 2 monasteries near the holy cave of the birth, one for men, where he himself became abbot, and the other for women, where Paula became abbess. And there he lived the rest of his life, like his female students, praying, practicing virtue, studying, and writing great theological works. His dormition was September 30th, 420 AD, but our church ranked him in the choir of her saints and great fathers. His memory is honored by the Christian Orthodox Church today, June 15, and by the Roman Catholics on September 30th. His writing work was large both in scope and quantity. His excellent knowledge of the Latin language made him one of the greatest Latin writers. He was mainly involved in the translation of the works of the Greek fathers into the Latin language, thus contributing to the acquaintance of the West with Eastern theology. He also wrote sermons explaining doctrinal and anti-heretical works. A large number of the letters have also been preserved, of his letters, but his most important work is the translation of the Holy Bible into Latin, which is known to us as the Vulgate, that is, common, popular, and as far as his teaching is concerned, it continues the tradition of the great fathers of the ancient church, St. Ignatius, Irenaeus, Cyprian, and the Cappadocian fathers. His entire theological system is summarized in the principle that man's salvation takes place only within the church, while outside of it there is loss, separation from God, and death. This I've translated from Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.